Trent Alexander-Arnold, the most naturally gifted fullback this country has ever produced. However, is this generational player better in midfield as opposed to playing at fullback? Carragher thinks so, and in today's video we're going to discuss and dissect his analysis on the situation, as well as hearing what me and Harv have to say about this whole view on whether Trent is better in midfield as opposed to playing in his natural position, which he has played predominantly for most of his career, which is right back. As we touched upon in the intro, Jamie Carragher thinks Trent should play in midfield, and he said that for England he's a midfielder, but for Liverpool it's hard to play him in there because they've signed 3 players this summer, and also because Trent is more of an attacking player in the sense of his best qualities are on the ball, spraying passes, crosses. If you put him in that Liverpool midfield, you're only adding to what Liverpool have already. I know Trent is a unique player and he's different to the likes of McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, but when you plonk him in there, he's not exactly going to shore it up defensively, and that's what Liverpool lack in midfield. They do. So, do you disagree with Carragher, or do you agree with what he's saying?
I agree that, in terms of the sense that he does have the skill set to play midfield, and he did say that. He said he has the attributes and the skill set to play midfield, which he is bang on that, to be fair, because the attributes that Trent does possess are very good for a midfield player, and he wouldn't look out of place in the midfield. But I do disagree with him in terms of the fact that perhaps as Liverpool haven't made them 3 signings, he could make his way into that midfield. And for England, he said if he's Gareth Southgate's player, he'd be as a midfielder, which is obviously what you said earlier. And I would probably disagree with that slightly, because I think when you look at like Trent's best attributes and the way he does, switch to play, and he's so creative, he gets a lot of space. And that's obviously, I'm not saying that's a bad thing,
on the ball,
but a lot more time, because he's so far out wide that when he gets the ball, he's obviously got a lot more time. Whereas when you're in a midfield, it's the most congested part of the pitch, and you don't really have much time. When you look at the best midfielders, like the Busquets and like the little Iniestas, the little clever midfielders,
quick one touch,
they'll quickly get the ball, boom, 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 and just quickly just sort of pass it out. They're very quick with their feet. Whereas I'm not saying Trent isn't that, but we don't know if he is that, and that's why it's sort of a risk to play in him in the midfield. And I don't think he's as good as some of the midfielders that Liverpool already have at sort of that sort of attribute.
Natural midfield players, aren't they?
That's the thing. And Trent is used to having the ball as as normal, because he's a right back, because that's normal. It's not like a bad thing, but he would be used to having the ball for quite a long time, where he receives the ball, he looks up and switches to play, or puts a cross in, or puts a pass out. Like amazing passes, amazing crosses, don't get me wrong, but he has the time to play them.
On his right hand side, there's literally no one, and behind him there might be the winger.
Exactly.
And all the players are in front of him. Whereas in midfield, you could have a midfielder chasing him behind him, midfielder coming from the left, the right. I hear where you're coming from.
And you get it from all directions. And I get that why Carragher said that, because I think he did say this on in punditry as well after the game. He did say that when Trent, looks like, especially in the City game, when Doku had the ball, Trent sort of came out to him, like, not lazily, but very slow, because it looks like he doesn't enjoy it.
No.
Which I understand, and he does look like that. He doesn't look like he enjoys 1v1 defending. But I just think that you have to sort of perhaps sacrifice perhaps his off days for the days that he's going to have that are good, because he will have days like the
because
City
his
game.
Qualities are so good, even if he is performing under par defensively. Because you know what he can produce.
Exactly, and I don't think. I mean, perhaps this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't think he can sort of play anywhere near the amount of like world class passes that he plays if he's in the midfield, because he just doesn't have the space and the time to do it.
And you may be saying, well, what you were on about? He has played midfield for England and for Liverpool, and you are right, but he never seems to play there permanently. And for Liverpool, he plays an inverted fullback role. So effectively, if you don't know already, Trent drops into midfield in that box shape as that sort of right defensive midfielder, plays passes from deep and plays balls through to the likes of Nunes and Salah, and then drops back into the defence when Liverpool need to defend. But sometimes the problem is that when he's in that right defensive midfield slot in midfield, he struggles to get back out to the winger. So you have someone like Konate or Matip come across from centre-back to right-back to cover the space. And that's all fine and that's all good, but Trent doesn't like to be in any sort of defensive positions, and he struggles at right-back. So when he's dropping into almost a centre-back space to fill the void that Konate or Matip have left, he sometimes even looks more out of place and more isolated than he does when he's at right-back. So there's always weaknesses to it, but it's just so hard to leave a man of that quality out of your team. But then at the same time, it's just hard to slot him in, isn't it?
No, and you can't have him as, Carragher did say that, with the 3 players that obviously Klopp did sign for Liverpool, their midfielders, you can't really, have Trent as a replacing midfielder. That's just stupid to do. But also, going back to the point that I did make earlier as well about how it would be very congested midfield, and Trent would, in my opinion, I think he would struggle. I think Trent also did say himself after the City game that the games were sort of played out on the wings, because he said it was very congested in the middle of the pitch. And he said that sort of as a little bit of a criticism for Liverpool in terms of it sort of affected them negatively. And if Trent's saying that it affected them negatively, the fact that it was so sort of congested, that sort of shows you that Trent doesn't sort of like that.
No,
so
he likes to have a lot more space. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of midfielders do, but if he's highlighting that as a key point, some players like look at Bernardo Silva, he's so good in tight areas. He's arguably the best midfielder in the league, along with the likes of Thiago. Enzo Fernandez is another good one, in those sort of pockets when they're congested. But Trent is a bit more, he likes to sit back, get a good view of the pitch, and then have more time on the ball, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And if you look at Trent's best moments, if you go and search up on YouTube Trent's best moments, a lot of them would be crosses where he's got the ball, had time, crossed it in, or great passes where he switched the ball, switched the play to even Robertson, or back in the day, Mane on the left wing, or now Luis Diaz or Nunez, whoever's out on that left wing.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of the best attributes he has, is when he gets the ball and he can switch the play.
He's not being pressured like I said earlier, is he?
No, exactly. And this isn't a sort of a criticism on him. This isn't saying that he could only do that and he can't play in a congested sort of midfield or congested areas. I'm sure he can, but I just don't think he can, like I said earlier, I just don't think he can to the level that Liverpool need to win a title, because when you're a midfielder, you really got to be tricky. You look at the likes of Rodri, and I'm not even just trying to say as a Tottenham fan, but like Basuma when he's in that DM role, even Declan Rice as well. When they receive the ball, they're very clever with it. And when you look at the great midfielders as well, like I mentioned earlier, the Iniestas, the Xavis, the top midfielders like Modric as well, and Casemiro when he's at Real Madrid, when they get the ball in sort of tight areas, you just see how tricky they are with their feet. And like you mentioned, Bernardo Silva, is
constantly checking over their shoulder.
Yeah,
exactly.
I just don't see Trent
scanning the area,
being like that. I just can't see that. And I do agree that obviously that he would be fantastic, and he does have the attributes in that sort of midfield position, but I think it's just a lot more than what people think. Like, although he might have the attributes,
oh, he's good at passing. Midfielders are good at passing.
Put him in a midfield. I don't think it's like that. You know, that's what I'm saying, and I just would disagree with the fact that people think it's so simple that Trent's bad at defending, he's great at passing, put him in midfield. I don't think it's like that. It's not that simple when you look at that. And if it was that simple, Klopp would have probably done it.
Yeah, exactly. But do you not think that he could almost play a role like De Bruyne does for Man City at Liverpool in that sort of right half space, right advanced midfield? I know Liverpool got Szoboszlai there, and maybe Klopp signed Szoboszlai because he doesn't see Trent as that player. But when you look at De Bruyne, the next best player in terms of having a similar skill set to him is Trent in terms of ball striking and playing the ball through.
Fantastic shooting, great finisher in terms of on the edge of the box, like you said with the ball strike. The strike of the ball, like he did against City. I remember he did one against Leicester back in 2019. The strike of the ball that he has is so satisfying to watch. It's really nice to watch the way he gets a good connection with the ball. His passing's fantastic. His overall game is great, apart from obviously defensively. And I think you are correct, by the way. I think that his skill set is probably the closest to De Bruyne.
Because there isn't really any other player in the league who can play those sort of passes.
No, he's a very complete player. Obviously, I know he's not great defensively as a right back, but in terms of that natural player,
on the ball qualities,
on the ball qualities, he's such a complete player, and he can play in a lot of positions. I'm not saying he can't play in midfield.
Well, he played in midfield at youth level, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He's experienced in these positions, and I'm not saying that like he can't play these positions, because obviously he's very complete. But I think, like you said, Szoboszlai's sort of signed for that. He does score a lot of goals, Szoboszlai as well. He's been absolutely fantastic.
He's not like a chance creator like a De Bruyne or a Trent, but he does get involved a lot with play further up the pitch. So I think as time will show and time will develop, we'll see him sort of become more of that player who does score an assist, because at Leipzig, and you watch him for Hungary, he scores an assist a lot more than he does at Liverpool. So that would only come with due time, but
And also, I think that if he did play in that sort of De Bruyne-esque role, I think you might have the issue of sort of, he wouldn't get the ball out wide and put in great switch, because one of his best attributes, in my opinion, is the way he gets the ball and he can switch it.
Yeah.
The way he can just switch the play just like that, and that will completely catch a team off guard. There's loads of space for him to sort of progress to Tsimikas or Robertson, whoever's playing at left back, or even the left winger, like I said, with Diaz or Nunez. There's a lot of space to exploit there, because you've basically, by that switch ball, you've taken out almost the whole team.
Exactly.
And I don't think he'd have that.
And then they all go to the other side, don't they?
Exactly. And I don't think he doesn't really have that sort of time and that sort of freedom to be able to play them kind of balls when he's sort of playing more centrally. I know he does sort of come in as an inverted fullback, but then he also does come out wide.
Exactly.
He's got almost like a free roam in that fullback role, and I think that sort of suits him. And I know people be like, oh, he's terrible defensively. I get it, but because he's so good going forward, you can't just say, oh, you shouldn't play because of his defense. Because if you take him out and put him in midfield and he doesn't do great in midfield, people be like, wow, why do you do that anyway?
Exactly.
That's the thing. So, and like I said, it's just not that simple to say he's great at passing, he must be a great midfielder.
It's almost sometimes, if you watch him, it's like he's a kid at secondary school, and he's almost just wants the ball, but the moment he loses the ball, it's not that he doesn't do the hard yards, because he will chat back, but it's not like he's fully focused and zoned in. And yes, he isn't
no.
a defensive-minded player, but sometimes you just want to see a bit more of that. And also in midfield, tracking your runners is a big thing. And if you're not tracking your runner at fullback, I know it might not be as costly in the midfield because it's not as close to goal, but midfielders, when they make runs, they don't just make it down the channel, they'll be making it out left, out right. Sometimes you have to follow your man all over the pitch, don't you?
Look at Liverpool's midfield last season where it wouldn't do the hard yards. You had Fabinho, and then you had like the likes of Henderson and a lot of older midfielders that wouldn't run like they used to.
No.
And then that's when you get completely overrun. And I'm not saying Trent is old and lazy, but he's just not that switched on. And obviously, I'm not trying to criticise him because this is sort of a positive for him. I'm saying he's good at right back. I'm saying he should stay there, but he's not sort of switched on enough to be in that midfield role, like you said. I don't think.
I think the only place I'd like to see him in midfield, I know he is playing as that right-sided DM, but what I'd like to see, I know Szoboszlai's there now, but I'd like to see him almost as that right-sided number 8, the advanced one. Salah in the right wing position, and then a right back, not like Joe Gomez, who's not very good going forward, but a right back who's almost... It's hard, like a Kyle Walker almost, who's pretty good going forward, pretty good defensively, and then Trent can almost have that license in that space to play the balls through. He can drift out wide when Salah drifts in, almost like what they're doing now, but in a more advanced position. It's just basically, it just sounds like we're trying to get Trent away from our goal, and I don't want him in those positions where he's having to defend one-on-one.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, like Harvey said, playing midfield's a different ball game. So
I think you have to sort of take the defensive liability with the amount of good things he does going forward, because he does more good going forward than he does bad defensively. It's not like he's a complete clown defensively and he is incompetent of defending. He can defend. He'll just have that off game where he'll be, perhaps ran ragged by the Luton winger, or perhaps ran ragged by Doku, which I don't think he was. A lot of people are saying he was. I don't think he ran ragged by him, in my opinion.
He did get skinned a few times, but it wasn't like he was humiliated.
Doku also gets past a lot of players. Like it's not unheard of for Doku to be able
it's
to.
It's not like the
Luton
Luton winger who you'd say as a Liverpool.
No, and I agree with that. He should keep him quiet, and that is the games that he will have where he has his off days. But the amount of good he does going forward, you just can't sacrifice that. And like you said. And like I said earlier, playing in the midfield is just a different ball game, man. And I just don't think it's that simple to say, got the attributes, put him in, because it's just not like that. And football's a lot more complex than that, It's not simple. You can't look. It's not FIFA, pretty much. You can't just stick him in the midfield because he's good at passing and he's got 89 passing. No, it doesn't matter.
Like you said, Klopp would have done that by now. He constantly says Klopp, why would you move, I think he said something along the lines of, why would you move the best right back in the world into midfield?
Yeah.
And
he's
I think he's thinking, well, maybe Trent isn't suited to midfield, so I'm almost going to mask the question by saying he's the best right back. And I'm not saying he doesn't believe that, but if he thought he was a better fit through midfield, he'd say, well, we may as well try the best right back in midfield to try and make him one of the best midfielders. But he never quite says that, so it shows something there.
And also, what Carragher did say is he said that, if Liverpool signed perhaps not world class, but very good defensive right back, and then put Trent up further forward, perhaps like in the midfield or perhaps just further up there.
Like what I said earlier, in that sort of advanced role that Szoboszlai plays.
What I would say is a very, very good right back is not going to come cheap. And if that right back is expensive, then if you put him there and Trent, for whatever reason, like for the opinions that I said, doesn't work in the midfield or perhaps in that number 8 role, wherever you want to put him, if he doesn't work there, because I don't think he'd be a great winger because he's not like Salah. You're not going to put him instead of Salah, are you? That'd be pretty silly. And in that midfield role, like I said, it's a different game. It's a different ball game. It's a lot more complex than people think. There's definitely a good chance that it couldn't work out. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but
that could cost Liverpool financially.
And that could completely cost Liverpool because then you've got a great defensive right back, but then you've also got Trent there. Well, who'd you go with then? Because whoever you're putting on the bench is worth a lot of money and they're not going to be happy, and then that just creates an upset squad, which is the last thing you want. Or you're going to create either pressure on the players to perform, which just doesn't good. Like if you've got Trent under pressure performing, it might hamper his game.
I don't know. In some ways, that is a good thing because sometimes you almost feel like he's sometimes a bit too lax sometimes because he knows he's not going to be displaced. Although, like what City do, where one player's out, one player, like Gvardiol and Ake both always play well, but then one's always playing over the other.
If Trent was getting dropped for this, whoever right back is, say it's a very expensive right back who's good defensively, and if Trent's getting dropped from it, is he going to be happy? No.
So put in the comments down below what you think Klopp and Gareth Southgate should do with Trent. Do you think he should be a permanent midfield player? Do you think he should be a permanent fullback? Or do you think he should persist and Klopp should persist with this inverted fullback role? And do you think dropping in and out of midfield and into fullback works best? Comment down below your thoughts. Like this video if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe for more and we'll catch you in the next one.